Hey guys, it's Ron. Just wanted to pop in here really quick to say thank you so much for your patience regarding this episode. As some of you may know, September was a really difficult month for me between changing jobs and all the stuff with my dog. Just lots of things up in the air right now. So I appreciate your patience on this one. It's a really great episode. I'm going to request really quick at the front of the show that if you can monetarily support the podcast, if you've ever been listening and you smiled because of it, if you've enjoyed any of these monsters and wanted to incorporate them into any of your games or stories or whatever, just if you enjoy this show and the folks that I bring on, please consider contributing to the podcast over on patreon.com/justalittle_guy. It would go a really long way. And similarly, if you can't afford to do so, that is totally fine. Believe me, I understand. If you could just spread the word to your friends who enjoy tabletop games and character design and all sorts of stuff like that, be super duper appreciated. In the meantime, I'm going to try to get everything kind of back on track. So after episode 8, I'm going to try to go back to a weekly format. We'll see how that works. Obviously, I'll try to keep you in the know, especially if you're on the Patreon. Because, obviously you're helping me pay for this whole shebang. So, but in the meantime, again, I appreciate your patience in waiting for this episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. It features That Dang Dad, also known as That Dang Phil. So enjoy. Hello, everybody. My name is Ron Swarthout, and this is Just a Little Guy, a podcast in which I collaborate with some of my favorite folks from around the world to whip up a brand new batch of beasties for all your creative needs. Our guest this week was a new father when he started his journey into YouTube. It began as a way for him to discuss the things that he had been learning during long nights awake, caring for his newborn child. You might be familiar with his series of videos documenting his journey from police officer to police abolitionist. His channel is called That Dang Dad, but we know him here as Phil. Hey Phil, how's it going today?
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to do this.
Of course, it's a pleasure. So you have, we have mutual friends, specifically Zoe B, who has kind of told me that you're really into tabletop games. Would you care to elaborate on that a little bit? What's your favorite system? What kind of characters do you like to play?
Yeah, I'm actually fairly new to tabletop. I got into it via the Adventure Zone podcast, which started as 3 kind of podcast comedians started playing D&D with their dad, who had no experience with it. I think none of them did. And it was just really funny. And then it turned into this big touching adventure, and it was just really interesting. And so through listening to them, I enjoyed kind of the collaborative storytelling of it and ended up joining my own campaign over Discord and played for 2 years. My first character was a fantasy pro wrestler. was a wood elf who left the village to go do wrestling school, and
that's incredible.
Ended up on a grand adventure. And then my second character was a bard. It was a used wagon salesman, and his bard chants were sales slogans and jingles. And so I enjoy playing. I've learned to enjoy playing sort of offbeat characters or something kind of off the beaten path, just because my original, pro wrestling character was a fun concept, but I was playing as a monk, and basically it was just every time it was my turn, I punch, and I punch again, and I punch again. You know what I mean? So
you're throwing a little kick for spice,
Yeah. I don't think I deflected a missile once during the whole campaign. But yeah, I enjoy collaborative storytelling. I enjoy kind of improv and, character design, character work. That's a lot of fun for me. So since getting into that, I've listened to podcasts that do Powered by the Apocalypse, Monster of the Week, Blades in the Dark. And those all seem really interesting. So I like the ones that are a little mechanically crunchy, but also leave room for role play and for all I wanted to do I'll tell you this. All I wanted to do in D&D 5e was suplex a guy off a cliff or something, and
Yes.
the mechanics just weren't there without a lot of DM fudging and kind of homebrew. It's like all I wanted to do was just choke slam a guy or power bomb a guy through a table, and it was really hard to make that work. So any system that lets me live out my pro wrestling fantasies, that's the system for me.
No, I completely understand that. I mean, I think that we may have discussed it before, but if not, I am also a huge wrestling fan. Um, I just started a Monster of the Week. It was supposed to be a one shot, but it's kind of gone into a two shot territory where I picked the Luchador as my playbook.
Heck yeah.
And his name is Brock Lariat, and the first thing that he ever did was do a German suplex on a guy. So
See, it's a beautiful thing. I love that.
it really, truly is. It's a lot of fun. Um, yeah. What do you enjoy so much about the collaborative aspect with tabletop games?
I think it's. I think what I enjoy is the kind of surprise that you can get from it, or the kind of the pleasure of novelty. Like I've been a video gamer since forever, and since I was a kid, I loved RPGs like the Final Fantasy series and Chrono Trigger. And then later, I got into stuff like Dragon Age Origins and Pillars of Eternity 2 is probably one of my favorite computer games ever. And so I love building characters. I love playing pretty princess dress up with gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love customizing and things like that. But when you play a computer game, even one that's very reactive, like I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 right now, which is being hailed as being very reactive for a computer game, you're always only ever gonna do what the developers have programmed into the game, right? Like there's only so much freedom and flexibility you can have. And so what I love about tabletop collaborative storytelling is that you can go in new directions that nobody anticipated. In the first campaign that I ever played, we saved a character that I think in the story was supposed to be killed, and that was supposed to set the stakes of the encounter. And we were level 1, and there was supposed to be no way that we could rescue this character, and that was kind of the point. But we rolled a whole bunch of nat 20s in a row,
Whoa.
just out of nowhere, and saved this character who had no place, in the game book afterwards. But so it was fun for the DM to like keep making this guy a recurring character, and we kind of adopted him as kind of the party mascot. And that's just something that can't really happen in a game in the same way. Over the course of playing my pro wrestler, I decided that he was a real like himbo type because I was new to TTRPGs, and so I didn't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. So I let that be part of my character, that he was a real dunce that didn't
Mm-hmm.
had never paid attention to his parents, and so me not knowing anything and him not knowing anything worked in tandem. And so then I got to decide that when we went to an enchanted wood and met a unicorn, that all I wanted to do in the world was pet this unicorn. And you know what I mean? It's just like silly things like that you can make a game your own. And like nobody in the world has had the same game that we had playing this module that thousands of people bought the same module, right? Like it was baby's first Sword Coast adventure or whatever. But like nobody had the
Absolutely.
game that we had, right? Like nobody had that same experience. And so I just think that's such a beautiful way to do art together, right? Like
It really is. Like that's one of my favorite aspects of playing as well is that I just randomly throw out a name there, and the guy that I play with, Jacorn, will just he'll feel the urge to make a whole new NPC out of it. And so there's like all these wacky characters like Peter Thunderlover, the guy who like loves thunderstorms so much that he goes out into them like butt naked, and you know uh there's other ones too, like we saved this Noel from being murdered, and now it goes around with us. It's called Beyonce Noel. So and it's like the strongest character in the group. So
yeah,
um
my if I ever join a D&D campaign again, I don't know when I'll have time for it. I desperately want to play a gelatinous cube that some artifact has fallen into and given it sentience. Like, I'm very attracted to like like just like what's the strangest thing you can do in the system? Like, how can I really explore the limits of what the system will let me do?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's my favorite part about it as well. And we're back. So we've talked
Heyo.
a little bit about making monsters and or make it. Oh God, I don't know what the format of my own show is. We talked a little bit about like your experience with tabletop and things like that. But what's your favorite kind of like monster that you've come across so far? I think it
Well,
was really.
my problematic fave, of course, H.P. Lovecraft. It's
Mm.
I grew up loving it. You know, all the caveats in the world, we all know.
Oh yeah.
uh, but so I'm really attracted to. I think what I'm really attracted to is the idea of things that are hard to understand or alien in a way that is truly alien, like truly, um, just truly outside of our realm of understanding. So, like, I'm enjoying this Baldur's Gate 3 because it takes place all around mind flayers, so, brain tentacles, love it. I'm all about it. Um, oh man, one of the podcasts that I've been listening to is called Fun City, and they've been doing a new system called Stillfleet, which is a sci-fi system that takes place 1 million years in the future, and that thing is just full of all these odd races and creatures and things like that. But they have like these interdimensional Cthulhu's that kind of cruise around and phase through time and space. And so I like things that are gribbly and tentacly and but truly alien or strange, or like the gelatinous cube that I was talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I love that. Like, just a cube of goo. Like, what a beautiful thing. Like, so I like things that are non-humanoid, and because I think for me that gives you a chance to really explore, like, what does a gelatinous cube think about? Like, do they have
Yeah.
religion? Do they care about things? Do they have joy or grief, or don't they? Um,
Does it understand language?
yeah, or like
Yeah.
one of the creatures that I've run into in Baldur's Gate 3 now are a colony of mushroom people, like myconids, I think they're called. Like,
Oh, that's
I
pretty
love
cool.
that. So they're like a colony hive mind of mushrooms, and they have a totally different approach to life and death, right? Because through rot, new life is born. So for them, death is just, for us, becoming a teenager is like a big transition. For them, death is a transition in the same way. So I just think it's a really neat space to explore.
No, I agree completely. That's really cool. So I'm just gonna take the paper out of here, just like rip. Okay, and the first thing that the Monstermatic has given us is a name, and that name is Algrathm, which could potentially lead to some Lovecraftian directions. Now that I think about it,
Yeah, it's got some of the right phonemes.
yeah. What do you think that something called Algrathm, like written in tomes of monstrous history, what do you think it would maybe look like? What would it be described as?
It's interesting. The first image that comes to my mind when I hear that is like inhumanly tall. I'm feeling tall from it. Tall and lanky and kind of hunched over, like
I can see that.
like a tall like tall and bent is what's coming to mind immediately.
Yeah, almost like a Slender Man if it didn't have proper what's the word I'm looking for here? The thing posture.
Right, yeah, like, or like I'm picturing like praying mantis kind of like hunched over with with limbs kind of curled in front of it.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Do you think it would have like a mantid kind of like head, or would it be more like humanoid in the facial region or the skull region, I guess?
No, I'm definitely thinking kind of insectoid, um, like an inscrutable face, like whatever head, if you were trying to search it out for what it was feeling or thinking, it would be difficult to it would be difficult to really understand or draw any conclusions. It's something very closed off, like maybe not a lot of
Yeah.
musculature, like very just chitinous and um, featureless.
Yeah, like its emotions are kind of ambiguous because like it's
Exactly.
like you said can't do a whole lot of expressing. That makes a lot of sense. So it's got long kind of extremities. Do you think it's like muscly? Would it just be like thin or like kind of gaunt, I guess?
I'm thinking like gaunt and wiry. Like I'm picturing like I'm picturing like it looks brittle from afar. Like you would think, oh, this is something fragile.
Hmm.
But if you were to touch it, it would feel it would feel very wiry. Like it would feel very much like a steel cable.
Ooh, interesting. So in a fantasy setting like back in, like I guess a lot of them are considered like medieval even though they aren't technically whatever. How do you think that would like do you think it would try to use that as like a camouflage somehow, or um would it be like more in your face kind of thing? Because I feel like in a modern setting it would be able to just like hide among like, big like power wires and stuff like that. But I feel like in if it was like in a Dungeons and Dragons kind of situation, it might have like a little bit more difficulty blending in.
Yeah, it's like since we've been talking about it, like I've been in my mind palace. I have a very,
Mm-hmm.
visual imagination or whatever. I'm picturing like coming across this thing inside of an old deep vault, like underneath a tomb beneath a tomb that's been built on top of other tombs. And so I'm picturing this thing, at a dead end or in a corner, but like hunched, like kind of hunched over in the corner and not moving, but tall. And so your eye almost doesn't pick it up as a creature at first. Like it almost looks like just something leaned against the wall or some debris leaned against the wall. So I don't know if it's camouflage so much as just if it haunts the old ruins, it doesn't, your eye doesn't always parse it as a living being if it's not moving. And this thing can be very still, which is what's eerie about it.
Ooh, I like that. Being very still is especially creepy. I think that was like the whole selling point of Hell House LLC. I don't know if you've
Right. Yeah.
seen that at all, but yeah. That's also one of like my favorite things about like horror writing is that it's not what you can see, it's what you can't see. Or if you see it and then it's gone. If you're like
Oh, that's the
traipsing through these
worst.
tombs and you see like this just looks like scrungly little collection of bones and then you turn around a couple minutes later and it's gone, you're like, where did that go?
It's the worst.
Terrible. Do we think that it has like really like what kind of like complexion are we working with here? Do you think it's like a very like pale kind of skin? Is it since it's like insectoid? Do you think it might be like more of a like a green kind of thing to blend in, or do you think that because if you're saying it lives in like catacombs and tombs and things like that, maybe it's more of like a stone color so that it can blend in more effectively?
Yeah, I'm picturing it like kind of ashy colored, so dark, maybe dark gray or like a slate kind of color, like not black, but yeah, like a stony kind of color.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing.
Yeah, and I feel like that could be used like in either like a modern system or like an ancient system where it could just blend in like in the mountains. You see like some steep cliff faces, that thing could just be trouncing along there, especially at night, unseen, and you could be in danger.
Yeah, I can easily see it. Maybe it came from a cave system, but somebody built their tomb or their temple into the side of a mountain, and as happens sometimes, dug too deep, you know?
Yeah, I like that. That's a good origin story. It just like broke out, like, maybe it's been down there for thousands of years starving, and that's why it's so skinny. Do we think that it like eats people, or does it have like some other kind of way of like being frightening besides just being still and blendy?
Well, I kind of like the idea that it could, if we're riffing on the catacombs and ruins thing, I kind of like the idea that it's like maybe like it can scavenge bones and dead things, and
Ooh.
I kind of like the idea that like we don't know much about it, and it really creeps people out, and so I think there's a lot of confusion about whether it makes its own victims or whether it just haunts places where it can scavenge the bones of the dead. And is it scavenging flesh or bone, or what is it? Maybe if it's kind of chitinous and hard, maybe it's like the calcium in the bones that it really responds to.
That's really interesting. I would have thought of something like that. Just like, because if in my mind, I mean, I think that's like perfect. That's a great way for it to like sustain life, especially in that kind of setting. And I don't think that you'd have that ability like in like an underground kind of cavernous thing. So for it to like just haunt like abandoned buildings or tombs, catacombs, etc., where there could be just mounds and mounds of bones like all over the place. That's especially terrifying to me.
So there's a podcast that I listen to called The Old Gods of Appalachia, and
Yes.
it is. Have you heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
So in Old Gods of Appalachia, one of the kind of the inspirations for it is the fact that the Appalachian Mountains are very, very, very old. And so you will find like seashells inside the mountains because that was ocean and then beach and then mountain and things like that. So I kind of like the idea of this creature that maybe has lived off of the shells since time immemorial, and then all of the sudden to have access to like bones, and people just put all these bones all in the same place, all in a row, like a big buffet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's had to
Yes.
scrimp and scrounge for these little seashells for so long, and then it's just wow, Bone City. Like,
Yeah.
what a treat.
There's Old Country Buffet, and then there's Old Country Buffet.
Exactly.
uh, well, what kind of weaknesses do we think it would have, if any?
I bet
Because I'm think.
you. I bet you it does not like light. I'm gonna guess that it is sensitive to bright types of lights, and probably heat. Catacombs and caves and tombs tend to be pretty climate controlled, so I'm guessing
Yeah.
it does not like big heat swings.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. We've already called it Algrathm. Should we maybe add on to it, like, I don't know, the Bone Sucker or something? Like, uh,
Yeah, I was trying
I
to
don't
think of
know.
what the old wise women of the village would call it. Like the bone thief.
Yeah.
I think the bone thief is taken. That's something. I think that's a Clive Barker novel.
Is it? Oh, I guess it might be. He does have Hellbound Heart already.
Yeah, right. He takes all the good ones.
God.
Yeah, like the bone eater, or
Yeah, Brianna Shields wrote The Bone Thief.
there you go.
I don't know
Someone's
who that
always
is.
getting there first.
I know. I was fortunate to get just a little guy. I was surprised nobody picked that
Yeah,
yet.
that's amazing.
um let's see, because we got the bone eater, we got the maybe the cave crawler or the tomb, the catacomb crawler, tomb crawler. I keep going back to crawler even though it's not really crawling. I guess it's kind of hunched over, so
Yeah, I think what would be really creepy about it is if we don't really know how it moves, because it's always
nobody's seen it.
it's always very dead still, and when you round the corner and see this thing when you're robbing a tomb or whatever, I think people just run. I think they just book it, and so we don't really know much about how it moves or if it's hostile. We don't really know.
That's true. Maybe it's like the Grave Guardian. Maybe it's a
Oh, I like that.
yeah, Bone Eater. I'm writing down these different names, but
Or
I feel like hmm?
another angle too is with it kind of hunched over with its kind of limbs folded in front of it. I can see people calling it like the mourner, like if it's in a tomb and it
Oh,
looks like it's hunched over mourning these bodies. Maybe like the morning beast or something like that.
I love that name. That's yeah. That makes a lot more sense than what I was saying. It could also be that like it has many names, kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Like how there's like Bigfoot and it's the Sasquatch and et cetera, et cetera. It has like a zillion names, but
Yeah,
it's all
because
kind of the same thing.
it's all coming back around like bar tavern talk from adventurers coming back, or people, tomb robbers or kids that were screwing around. You know what I mean? So it's all, everybody's got their own take on it because they're coming back with these tall tales of this weird thing they saw.
Yeah, they'll be like, don't go down there in them their catacombs because you gotta worry about the Bone Eater, or
It was a
like you
hundred
said,
foot tall if it was a foot.
yeah. Okay, so I also like to add in like a little bit of like I don't know humor or something. This guy is pretty like I don't want to say he's humorless, but like he's pretty terrifying.
It's a little
Um,
grimdark, yeah.
yeah, yeah. What do we think would make him like a little more human or like okay, here's one that I kind of did with Jay before. Do you think this character would have a nice ass? Because he's squatting all the time. He's, I don't know.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's constantly squatting through caves and tombs. Like, it's definitely got some cakes on it, I think.
Okay. It's caked up.
Yeah. And, it's, I'm trying to think of something like, I could see it being, I could see it being funny seeing it interact with like a skull and kind of fiddling around with a skull in its hands and kind of making the mouth move.
Oh, like it uses skulls as puppets?
Yeah, kind of making the teeth chatter.
I like that idea. It's kind of again tragic, but also like it's playful, That's what it does for fun.
Well,
It
yeah,
plays
I
with
mean,
skulls.
you're in a tomb. You gotta make your own fun, I say.
Yeah, everybody just focuses on the things that the monsters do that's like scary, but they like to play too. They're not always like emo, is what I say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, do we have anything else we want to add to Algrathm the Mourner?
I think, I don't know, just for flavor. Do people use these in their campaigns or whatever? I think there's never been a confirmed Algrathm attack. We know of nobody that's ever been harmed by this thing, but everybody is just grossed out by it.
Nice. I like that. It could potentially just be dormant and like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like passive or like a
Just
pacifist kind of
docile,
thing.
or
Docile.
it
Yes,
could be hyper intelligent. Nobody talks to it.
that's true. That's brilliant. It's like the most misunderstood because like nobody whenever you see it you're like nope going away now, and he's just like look, I just wanted to have a talk about pedagogy and that kind of stuff.
My
So,
name is Dustin.
yeah. Dustin Bones. He watched The Undertaker once when he was younger and he just
Exactly.
knew. All right, I like this. I like Algratham the Mourner.
Yeah, that was grimdark. We'll be funnier on the next one.
Nah, we can be as grimdark as possible and then just throw in like a little quirk every once in a while. I'm totally fine
Fair
with that. Okay, so moving on. This monster, according to the Monstermatic 5000, by the way, this monster lives in a chiropractor's office.
Okay.
That's all I've got on it.
Okay.
I just did random background generator. It said chiropractor's office. So we are doing full on improv now. What kind of monster would haunt a chiropractor's office?
So this monster, when it walks around, it sounds like a back cracking and popping, and that's why it likes chiropractors' offices, because it masks the sound, of it kind of creeping around, kind of.
Oh, that sounds. Oh, that's terrifying. What do we think it looks like? Do we think it's like really skeletal? Is it? Does it look like something completely unexpected? Like, I keep going back to like Jack in the Box because I was thinking about the gift thing from before.
Yeah, I feel like it's too obvious if it looks like a spine.
Yeah.
What about like this might be a little out there. I'm picturing like what would look like vertebra but arranged like a lattice, like a carpet of vertebra, if you can picture such a thing. So as
I gotta look
it
that up.
kind of moves like a slug, all the little vertebra kind of bump against itself, and it sounds like back's crashing, but it almost kind of looks like a bath mat, but it's made out of bone.
Oh, that would be sick. And it just like crawls along the carpet, just like, yeah.
Yeah, it's not even hostile. It's just like it's just vibing.
Yeah, it's just like there, just being unsettling. Maybe it is a good way to alert whatever big boss might be in the area. Like maybe it's almost like a noisemaker. When it notices something, it crawls on over to it. Or something like that. Like not even necessarily being hostile. Maybe it just wants a pet, Who doesn't like a back rub?
That's just how it communicates. And so different clicks and clacks. And that's why it likes chiropractors' offices, because that's like the mating click is is a lot like chiropractic adjustments. And so that's why it kind of hangs out there, because it thinks like there's a mate.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Hangs out there. It's essentially like a bar.
Right, exactly.
Like
a singles bar.
Do we think that it like would do anything to like patients, like, or is it just like the security guard at night will hear the sound of backs cracking and flashes the light down the hallway and sees this monstrous little lattice just crawling along the ground?
It would kind of creep around at night looking for its mate, but I also kind of like the idea that chiropractors train them to like bring them instruments and tools and things, like
okay.
like use them as little pets or servants or something. It's kind of that's the more funny, upbeat one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I kind of like that idea, just because then it's like you said, it's wacky, it's kind of humorous. It's a thing that you wouldn't expect to see, like a carpet made out of spinal cords just like coming around with like, I don't know. The one time I went to a chiropractor, they used like this gun like on my back. So to picture that just like carrying around like this really intense like spinal readjustment like gun thing, I mean that could be both humorous and horrifying, because that thing can do some serious damage.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was picturing kind of undulating along with the gun bouncing along on its back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, there goes the spine floor guy. He's just he needed to go get the tools.
Oh, don't mind Reginald. He's with me.
Yes. I like that. That's the name that you go to as well for that, because there was a time when I was a streamer where I would just call out just like, Reginald, come over here and play this game for me. So it's like a little servant guy, basically, or it can be for chiropractors. Otherwise, it just kind of skulks around looking for its mate. What else can we add to this dude? Why did it come to exist?
Well, now you're getting into the existential questions.
Now we're getting into
any
the
of us
philosophy tube.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very different question if this is, kind of high fantasy setting versus like, sci-fi futuristic, um, you know, more of like, cyberpunk futuristic kind of thing. If we're gonna dip out of high fantasy for a moment and into like, sci-fi,
Hmm.
to me it sounds almost like an experiment gone wrong, some kind of bone generation experiment that they were testing, some corporation, some mega medical corporation was testing out medicines to grow spine bones or things like that, and accidentally gave some, life, and then they just panicked and threw him in the sewer. Uh,
Okay.
I would expect nothing less of a, this was a failed experiment, and they threw them all in the sewer just to get rid of it, and turns out they
I'm
were.
shocked that you would suggest that corporations would do something so cruel as to create a new form of life and just throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, I don't know what came over me. I'm usually so pro corporate.
I know. Corporations would never hurt us, especially not Spotify.
Yeah, they're job creators. Come on.
Yeah. I would like some of that Joe Rogan money. Okay, I mean, that makes a lot of sense that it would be like something like an experiment gone awry. I think that you could also put that in a high fantasy setting where it's like maybe a necromancer accidentally a whole room of spines somehow like messed up the spell, had a whole bunch of people laid out, was like, okay, I'm gonna raise like this whole army of the dead, and then he either rolled poorly or said the wrong word, and suddenly it's just their spinal columns coming together. Like,
Yeah, to me that's such a more interesting critical fail than just you didn't cast the spell. Is you cast
yeah.
the spell, but look what you've done.
Are you happy with yourself?
Are you proud?
Oh, so I think it could fit in either one of those settings. If it was in a band, what instrument would it play? Now I'm doing full on Scooby Doo stuff.
Um, the theremin.
Interesting. I would have thought xylophone, but theremin makes a lot of sense.
Well,
You gotta be-
xylophone's obvious.
Yeah, that's true.
Come on, that's hack material. We're elevating this.
Who are we? Danny Elfman?
Yeah, come on,
Jeez.
get out of here.
What does it order when it goes out to Buffalo Wild Wings?
Well, obviously not the boneless, not the boneless
No.
wings.
That's treacherous to its own kind.
I mean, I kind of like the idea of it almost like like a bottom feeder. But if we're going back to the chiropractor's office, like the bone shavings from surgery, it's just kind of like a little cockroach. It's just kind of, kind of. I don't know. We're back to bone eating. We already did a bone eater in the first one.
I know.
Back to a bone eater again.
Everything comes back to bones.
Am I hungry? Have I had dinner?
Do you want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yeah, it sounds like
Just
I
chew
need
on
some
the bones.
calcium.
Yeah. Just chew on the what do you call it there? The stuff inside the bones. I can't think of it right now. What the hell is it
Oh,
called?
the marrow.
Yes. That's what we.
I went to a fancy steakhouse one time and ordered a, fancy steak, and they brought out the bone with the marrow in it, and I was like, "What is this?" And they said, "That's the marrow." And I said, "To eat?" And they said, "Yeah, it's kind of like a butter, like you can spread it on." And I said, "Wow,
That's
learning a lot."
yeah. See, to me, I would be terrified by that. I'd be like, no, I don't think I want to use bone butter. Thank you.
Like,
I'll take the cow butter.
yeah, I didn't want to, but I had spent so much on this freaking meal that I was like, well, if I'm gonna eat marrow anywhere, I'm gonna eat it at this place that was, $60 a plate.
Of course.
It was pretty good. I gotta say.
Yeah.
I felt like a monster eating bone marrow, but it was pretty good.
No, I mean I can understand that. That's I'd probably feel similarly. That's really cool though. I didn't know that was a thing that they did. Does it have a superpower, do you think? Like, I imagine if you fling it hard enough, it can fly, but not very far.
I think it's just really dense. Like, I think it's just really indestructible, but it's also not like that mobile. You know what I mean? It's like a superpower, but in the hands of somebody that cannot use it. So it's
Yeah.
indestructible, but to what end, you know?
Sure, like, does it need to does it need to have this, power? Yeah.
Yeah, of all the things to be this bony and dense, it's just this kind of, just this little critter that just kind of undulates along the ground and doesn't really seem to do much.
Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of there to just be there. Maybe trip you up every once in a while.
Yeah, that's
Maybe it
a little
finds that funny.
scamp.
Yeah. It's a maybe that's what it does. It's a trickster.
I would love it if these were playful. Like if they had a little goblin streak in them, a little playful streak.
Yeah, I mean, what would it do for fun? I mean, scare people, obviously. Um Obviously it can mate. We've established that it has a mating call. Uh I guess maybe it like rolls around, like forms into like a cylinder and just goes on a ride.
Yeah, I'm picturing
Um,
like when snakes, they kind of coil around each other or something when snakes have sex.
yeah,
Like that's what I'm picturing. At least they kind of fold over on each other or something.
yeah, yeah. No, I would think that would probably be the way it works. So you just walk in like, and there's just like this giant, like almost like if you walked into a warehouse and there was stacks of pallets, except for it's all like just
Yeah.
spinal cords and the weird formations and uh
Yeah, and they don't have gender, so it's unclear like top bottom like
yeah.
who
You
nobody
have
knows how
no
these things are
idea.
born. Just one day you find a new little vertebra on the ground and then like
It just pops up out of nowhere. Like in Minecraft.
exactly. And like we don't know how it works and we don't want to know. Like
Too true. Too true. Okay. Um we got to give it a name. So what do we think that we would call these?
so when you name something like this, are you starting with like the idea of a name like a new word, or are we thinking a name like like you would give a woodpecker, with kind of a description.
Oh, I think it could go either way. I would think more like woodpecker though. Like if we were to put this into like a cryptozoology book, like what would it be called? What would the old wives, like you said, of the town? That was a great way to put it. Like what would it be called in like the local lore? You know, like I guess you could just call it Greg, but
Yeah, we were already. I wish I hadn't done another bone one because we were talking about the bone eater, but like I was picturing like bone mat, like bath mat, but for bone. Like that's. I'm
the
trying to
bath mat for bones.
exactly. I'm trying to like riffing on the idea of like a mat or a carpet, like a.
Hmm,
What about?
let's
How about the? Here's a knuckle carpet.
knuckle carpet. Oh, that's just gross enough, I think, to work.
It sounds
Because
like something you would have in a cryptozoology book to scare kids.
for sure, I would be worried about running into a knuckle carpet someday. Like that sounds like it's gonna punch you.
Yeah, or like, be careful when you go to the bathroom at night. If you don't turn on the light, you might find yourself stepping on a knuckle carpet.
Yes, that is great, especially with the accent. That just makes it even better. All right, let's call it the knuckle carpet then. Do we need to add anything else to the knuckle carpet?
I mean, I don't want to put a hat on a hat. That seems like a pretty good. It seems like a pretty solid concept.
I agree. All right, let's move along.
We got to do something fleshy or bulbous this time. It's been all bone this
Yes,
whole
it's
time.
been all bone. So maybe we'll do one that's fleshy and bulbous.
The giant
So
tummy.
yes. Well, actually, it's kind of funny because the last one that we got here from the Monster Matic is from our good friend Solari. Are you familiar with Solari?
The YouTuber, yeah, I like Slary.
Yes.
Oh yeah, huge fan.
Yeah. So he was on my last episode, and the name that I think that was like 2 episodes ago now, but the name that he gave me was Anfernee Bolus. And I don't know if you're familiar with what Bolus is.
Is that a Magic the Gathering dragon?
I don't think so. If it is, I'm surprised. According to Google, which I guess got its definition from the Oxford Languages, bolus is a small round mass of substance, especially of chewed food at the moment of swallowing. So we could totally make this into something fleshy and bulbous.
That's perfect.
Right? Like, absolutely disgusting.
I sent you the Magic the Gathering card I was thinking of.
Oh.
It's not like Knuckle Bolus's cousin, Anfernee.
Oh, yes. They only have a very slight difference in their spelling as well. So there was a little bit of a delineation somewhere along the way.
Well, yeah, when Anfernee's ancestors came over on Ellis Island, they changed it.
Oh yeah, that was all. What the heck was that called? Was that like anglicized? Is that what they did?
Yeah, the customs agent misheard it and just wrote it down wrong.
Yeah, of course. What a doofus. Okay, I like that. So, Anfernee Bolus. Where do we think this came from? Do we think it's related to the dragon there, Knuckle Bolus?
So, if I'm going back to my Lovecraft, if I'm going back to my giant unknowable gods, I love the idea of a god coughing up some kind of hairball that in it whatever has happened in the unknowable stomach of the unknowable god has given this thing life. So I'm picturing Anfernee Bolus, whatever this nasty thing is, has been coughed up out of a much more powerful entity.
That's disgusting. I love it.
We're getting gross on this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the knuckle carpet was not quite as gross, but like, yeah, no, we've done some disgusting things. Some things that I might not be proud of, but at the same time, I'm extremely proud of.
I know the feeling.
So, yeah. So it's been coughed up by a god, and it's been given life through some unknowable means. What do we think it looks like?
I mean, I'm picturing like a hairball, like a big, just like fibrous and whiskery. You know what I mean? Like kind of not symmetrical, like roundish, but not fully symmetrical. It is not a perfect clean sphere. It is a lump.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So what does this guy do? What powers would it possess besides the power of life and being thoroughly unsettling?
Could it be an oracle that people approach with their problems if they can stomach it, if they can hold down their nausea for long enough? People try to consult this thing because whatever it was doing bouncing around in the god's stomach, it gives them visions, or maybe it gives them dreams that they interpret for the future.
We have not had a single oracle type monster on here yet. I think this is the most logical time to break that streak.
I'm so proud to give you a gross oracle.
Yes. It's the most disgusting oracle you've ever met, coughed up in a pool of phlegm by an unknowable just beast of the other world.
You have to put your forehead into its little hair, like its little hair nest. Like, you have to do that. That's the only way to get the dreams. And a lot of people can't do it.
Oh my God. That's like, this is getting Cronenbergian, which I'm very here for. That's wonderful. So what to even add on to that? Jesus.
I hope you have a fan art community, because I need to see.
Hey, not yet,
I need
but
to see
I'm
this.
sure I'm sure that somebody will draw this. This is going to be the episode that makes it take off.
Yeah.
Um
Please, God, I beg you.
so we've established that it's like a big old hairball, but how big exactly do we think it is? Like, is it the size of a man? Is it the size of a horse? The size of the Tyrannosaurus Rex? Coming
I'm
out
kind
of the mouth of a god, I'd imagine it's pretty
Yeah, I'm
big.
kind of picturing it like large boulder sized, and maybe it was it was first discovered in a mine, and it was just maybe a miner was taking a nap against a wall and happened, thought it was just some roots or something growing out and happened to brush his head on it and had a vision, and then they unearthed this thing and they kept chipping away at it and chipping away at it, and it was like colossally big, like
Oh my
the
god.
size of a house maybe or something. And they had to kind of unearth it from this mine.
I I have to say this is probably the most creative thing I've ever heard of.
Wow.
Because I would never have thought the most creative thing I've been a part of, because like I've never thought about like a miner taking a nap like in a mine, and then like through just sheer proximity, like having these minor like dreams, no pun intended there, having like these dreams that like basically caused the group to dig out this weird hairball that was coughed up by the gods and has omnipotence
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, it predicted a cave in. That's why they went to all the trouble. It predicted a cave in and saved 100 lives. I live in Kentucky, so I think about coal miners quite a bit.
I was
So
Yeah. I was gonna, off the record, I was gonna ask like where y'all are living like right now, and I feel like you probably mentioned it in your videos, but like,
yeah.
yeah, makes sense. The Appalachian and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, yeah. I feel like not enough people think about the coal miners, but what do I?
Only when they want to screw them over.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, we need you to vote for conservatives, and don't worry about what we're gonna do to your wages.
Yeah.
Just worry about that thing over there.
Yeah, no, no. The jobs will come back. We promise. We promise.
Yeah, I know we've said it every year for the last 100 years, but believe us, this time it's really going to happen. So, what do we think that it's like made up of? If it's like a giant hairball, I know that it's like it's hair, obviously, but is it hair of a god? Is it like, do the gods eat like creatures from around like different dimensions, and then like this is the amalgamation of all of those put together?
You know what I'm thinking of? You gave the definition of a bolus, and it turns out in my head I was thinking of that medical condition called I think it's called a Bezoar or something
Oh,
like that. And it's, if I remember correctly from watching Doctor House, it's like a condition where when you eat something in your stomach and it doesn't digest and it starts to like collect like
oh yeah,
debris around it or hair or things like that. It like kind of, it turns into this big mass in your stomach because it doesn't digest, and it just kind of like gets coated in all this the leavings of what you're eating. And so I'm
yeah.
picturing like a bezoar kind of thing where it's whatever it was something that was eaten and not digested and just kind of collected all of this funk like from around the cosmos, you know what I mean? And so it's like it's like minerals and roots and
Star
fossilized
things.
things. So it's like it looks like a clump of lots of things, you know what I mean? And so it's, it was hard to know, like, is the real creature inside it and this is like its shell, or is the real creature the amalgamation of this, which in totality has become its own life, kind of thing.
Yeah. Where does the sentience begin? Kind of where's that central operating system, I guess, kind of like, we all have like brains, you know. Uh but like where would that be for like this thing is kind of like its big mystery. Like how is it able to store all of this knowledge from the gods? Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I think there's a lot of debate. I think a lot of people want to revere it and worship it, because it saved all those miners' lives and people want to know the future. And so a lot of people want to personify it. But I think you have other scholars that are like, this thing might not be alive at all. It could just be some weird property of some mineral that's stuck inside there that just gives you weird mushroom dreams. And it's not, so I think there's a lot of debate, and people get really mad if you talk shit about Anfernee. Like they don't want to hear, they don't want to hear that it's not a benevolent being that saved their lives, right? Like people really need for this to be a living being.
That's incredible. Do we think that it has free will?
I like to think, I like to think that it has spent so much time in the belly of a god that question doesn't parse for this thing. You know what I mean? Like I like to think it's like operating on a higher level. I'm going back to my Lovecraft roots here. It's just, free will. What is free will in the system of the universe that we're all interconnected into? But yeah, I like to think it has some kind of agency to it, or some kind of volition. What that is, some kind of alien instinct or impulse.
Right. So it's kind of like maybe it has free will, but it's kind of similar to the rest of like its origin, where it's kind of unknowable in its nature, like what its intentions kind of are.
Yeah, like you can ask, what does it want? And I just don't think that's a question anybody can answer, or that has an answer for something like this.
Do we think that it ambulates at all? Like, how does it get around, if at all, or is it like because it was found in the earth, it's just kind of stationary and you have to go to it?
Yeah, I think I think they unearthed it and they put it inside of a structure, a temple or a church or a building, and I think it's just there, and you make pilgrimages to it.
Because I feel like if that wasn't the case, then it would be kind of at a threat of like being destroyed by, I don't know, non-believers or something of the sort, or scientists looking to examine it more.
Yeah, big old house-sized hairball rolling around. Somebody's gonna want to dissect that. Yeah, it's under guard.
Yeah.
Nobody. The mining town is not gonna let you near that thing.
Yeah, I could definitely see this being like the subject of a found footage horror movie.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You ever seen I think it's called The Church, or no, Beyond the Borderlands. I don't know. There's one about a church that's built around a thing, a big thing.
I gotcha. There was who was it? I think Brian Hollinger just did a video on it not that long ago, where it was about like this group goes to this church to like examine these supernatural occurrences, and they go down in the basement and like they find this wall that looks like it's all fleshy and stuff like that, and eventually they end up like dying.
Yeah, that's the
examining
one I'm thinking of. Whatever that movie is.
Yeah,
they get digested.
Yeah.
They get digested
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
belly of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember what that one's called either, but that I'm glad we were on the same page for that.
Combines my two biggest influences, which is religious trauma and H.P. Lovecraft.
Of course. Are there any other things like that? Like, come on.
that define my internal being? No, there isn't.
Do we think that it has a final form, or is this like is it able to power up somehow and like become more threatening, or is it just like it's just there to know things? It doesn't do harm intentionally.
Yeah, I don't see it as being any kind of something that's going to Hulk out or transform or hatch. But theoretically, if it were to get swallowed up again, it could continue to gather materials. You know what I mean? Maybe if we were going to get into some weird cosmic battle of good and evil, I can see a god wanting to swallow it to grow it and nurture it.
That's an interesting way to go about it.
I'm gonna get some real Cronenberg people swallowing hairballs, body horror gross.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Having like a couple of cats, just the thought of that, just like this is already disgusting, but you saying that just like brought it home, and I was just, ugh. Uh, okay. Is there anything else we need to add to our friend Anfernee?
That feels pretty good to me. I feel like you could write. I feel like you could write a whole campaign around that thing.
Yeah, for sure. Just this big strange hairball in the middle of a town, in the middle of nowhere, just able to transmit thoughts into your brain if you just are brave enough to put your head against it.
And that's one of my, when I think about things that I like about what we would call, cosmic horror, Lovecraftian horror, I love the idea that things that would be banal to a dimension traveling god would be life-changing and traumatic for us. So like I love the thought of like a hairball, you know what I mean? Like it's waste, it's nothing, it's a big nothing to the to this world beyond our world that we can't understand. This is so banal, but to us, just you picture like a bunch of ants worshiping a cat's hairball. That's what we're doing. Like to me, that's just such
Yes.
that just gets my imagination spinning about what is to us divine would be to others mundane is a huge like creativity motivator for me.
That's wild. Yeah, I really like that thought. I never would have put the ants worshiping a hairball like picture in my head, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that could be done with this guy. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else to add, I think we're gonna end the episode. So, thank you so much, Phil, for being here. I had a super friggin' ton of fun, like talking with you.
Yeah, this was a
Creating
hit.
these-
This was a welcome respite from thinking about
The
worldly
world.
matters.
Yes, for sure. I am really grateful for you coming on. Is there anything you'd like to plug or any projects going on that you'd like to promote?
Oh, you can find me on YouTube at That Dang Dad, and I'm on Twitter at That Dang Phil, and also on Blue Sky if you got the hookups to Blue Sky. But just my channel's on hiatus for at least a month because I'll be moving. So, but yeah, I got a nice backlog for people, or you can come say hi on Twitter. I try to be pretty approachable, and yeah, just trying to keep the vibes good.
Absolutely. I just watched your newest video earlier today. I thought it was really fascinating. So,
Well, thank you.
definitely go and check out that new one. God, what the hell was it called there? I'm sorry. I'm doing a very unprofessional.
It's okay,
thing
I
looking
made
it
it.
up
I'm
right now.
blanking. What was my last
The
name?
American Obsession Rotting Us from Within. That was,
There you go.
it was really riveting. So I'm really looking forward to checking out what you got next. I hope you and your family have a really safe move. Again, thanks for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, and for the rest of you listening, I'll talk to you all later. Okay, goodbye! Thanks again for listening to Just a Little Guy. A special thanks goes out to our patrons who continue to make this show possible, especially those who subscribe at our incomprehensible Cosmic Abomination tier, whose names I'll read out right now. Thank you to Taru Tikkanen and D. Solari. I'm eternally grateful for your generosity and your patience. As ever, if you'd like to support our show, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/justalittleguy. Do you want to check out Phil's work but don't want to do all that heavy typing? Don't sweat it. I've included all the links to his projects in the description. Thanks again for listening, and as always, beware of the Anfernee Bolus.